We are at the site of the Oklahoma City bombing that happened in 1995 by Timothy McVeigh. It is now a National Historic Landmark. It was the federal Murrah building. Now, directly behind me you see a reflecting pool. This reflecting pool was a street that went through. It is now designated as a memorial site. Behind me you see some chairs. Those chairs represent people whose lives were lost in the building. We'll take a closer look at those in a minute. To my one side is a display that says 901, and to my left it says 903. We'll talk about what those mean as we walk around and discover this site. Join me as we look at what happened on that day in Oklahoma City in 1995. These chairs are inside of what used to be the Murrah Federal Building. Each row of chairs from left to right represent the floors. The row closest to us was floor 1, and each chair represents a life that was lost on floor 1. Moving back, you have floor 2 through floor 9, and every life that was lost. The little chairs represent children who lost their lives. The building did have a daycare center in it, and that's why you'll see in a moment there's a clumping of small chairs, because they were all together in the daycare center. This reflecting pool here was a street, and this is where Timothy McVeigh parked his Ryder truck in front of the glass front building, which is one of the reasons why the devastation is so large, because the glass front allowed the bomb to penetrate much deeper. And it was a homemade bomb that he made, and it was roughly this exact spot right here where the truck was parked on the street, right here in this reflecting pool. On the left side, we see 901 in this building. That was the moment before Timothy McVeigh's bomb went off. This area here represents 902 when his bomb exploded. And on the other side, where the street would have continued, it says 903. The moment after the bomb went off and the moment restoration began. Turning around with the reflecting pool behind me is this grassy area. This grassy area was actually a parking lot. And this building behind the parking lot was here at the time of the bombing. Now we approach closer to where the chairs are and where the building once stood. This may give you a better view of, on the left here where the chairs are, was the federal building, the Murrah building. To my right, where this reflecting pool now is, was the street where the truck was parked. This area here is actually part of the original structure that still stands from the Murrah building. And these chairs are inside the footprint of what was the building. Each chair has a name inscribed on it, and each chair's name represents a life that was lost. At night, these chairs, the bottom base area, lights up and glows. Right here we see in row 2, there's a small chair. That's the first child. We see multiple small chairs and multiple rows of adult-sized chairs. Now you may ask, why are not all of the children in the daycare center on the same floor? Well, there were children visiting potentially with their parents who happened to be on other floors or who were not yet checked into the daycare center. So that is why you will find an occasional small chair on a different floor or in a different area in this display. Now, the reason this bombing happened was because Timothy McVeigh was upset at the handling of the Waco, Texas incident that had happened, I believe it was a year prior to that. And he said the government was getting too powerful and needed to be held accountable for their actions. So he decided to blow up a federal building in Oklahoma City. There wasn't really a great connection between Waco and this particular building, but to Timothy McVeigh, that didn't matter. As you can see, this was a very senseless act of what was known as a homegrown terrorist, killing innocent people. Now, directly behind me, we have the former McVeigh building location. On my left, your right, and the street, which I believe was 5th Street, where the Ryder truck was driven and parked. Now, when Timothy McVeigh was pulling up in his Ryder truck, he lit the fuse to his homemade bomb in the truck. He parked the truck right here on the street, which is now the reflecting pool, got out, and simply walked away. I believe it was in this direction that he walked away, back towards a YMCA that was back here, where he had parked his car. As he was approaching his car, his bomb exploded, and he was actually hit with a brick that flew from the explosion. He then drove his car away and was later on pulled over by a Oklahoma Highway Patrol, completely unrelated. His car did not have a license plate on it, which is the reason that Oklahoma Highway Patrol had pulled him over. Things seemed off, and the highway patrolman asked him about his license and why there was no license plate on the car. Because of this suspicion, he did ask for the license, and when Timothy McVeigh reached to grab his license, the highway patrolman noticed a bulge under his left arm, which he assumed to be a weapon. At this point, he grabbed for what he thought was a weapon and discovered it was a Glock handgun, and had Timothy McVeigh turn around and then removed his weapon, found he also had another weapon on him, and took him into custody. It wasn't until 2 days later that they discovered Timothy McVeigh, this person that they now had in custody, was actually part of the Oklahoma City bombing, the person who pulled it off. They had been looking for him for 2 days and didn't even know he was in custody on an unrelated incident. Here's a view looking towards the area where the truck was parked. On the right are the chairs and where the building was. To the left, this grassy area was a parking lot across the street from the federal building. And this building here is now a museum of this incident that happened here. There's still damage that they left intentionally inside this building, so you could see the damage that it took, but most of this building was fairly okay, being so far away from where the truck was parked right here in what was the street. And again, we are looking at just another view of where these events happened. This reflecting pool towards the bottom of the screen was a street. Roughly the center of the screen is where the Ryder truck was parked that was full of the homemade explosives that Timothy McVeigh used. Those chairs in the distance represent people whose lives were lost inside the building, and they are roughly laid out inside the building where those victims were found. That ends our visit of the Murrah Building Oklahoma City bombing memorial site. I hope that you learned something today from this. This is an experience that is somber and worth learning about. Please do me a favor, leave a comment below of anything you know about this site. Maybe you'd like to remember someone that you know who is lost in this bombing. Maybe you have questions that we can provide more answers for. Maybe you have some answers that you can provide in the comments below. I look forward to hearing from you and learning more as we continue together. And if you'd like to follow me on other places we visit, please feel free to subscribe so that you know when new content is uploaded and you can join me on the next place that we go together.